main sponsor.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Zama Ratnayaka for the Newsfirst team. Now, as it has been for quite some time, the headline dominating our news bulletin this evening as well is the spread of the COVID-19 virus in our home country of Sri Lanka. On the outset of things, let me give you a slight breakdown of our news bulletin and what you can expect from our news bulletin tonight. Now, on the outset of things, firstly, we will be taking a look at the situation of the COVID-19 in Sri Lanka as of today, and the situation is that 20 people were discovered to have been infected with COVID-19 as of today, and 3 people, on the brighter side of things, 3 people have recovered and left the relevant hospitals after being recovered from the COVID-19 virus. Also we will be looking at several medications, although there is no definite cure according to the World Health Organization. We will be going to find out whether there will be certain medications to combat the COVID-19 virus, and that is one thing that we will be viewing in our bulletin later on today. And the government's measures will also be discussed that are in place to combat the dissemination or the spread of the COVID-19 virus in Sri Lanka. Furthermore, we will also be looking at how to face the depression that has been brought upon a general public and the people of our country as a result of COVID-19. Furthermore, we will be looking at how the Navy has seized a ton of drugs during a raid carried out in high seas. And these are some of the stories that you can expect from our news bulletin tonight. So without further ado, let's carry on with our news bulletin. Now, 20 new COVID-19 cases were reported today, and this is the highest number of patients reported from a single day in Sri Lanka. The number previously stood at 13. Further, on the brighter and lighter side of things, 3 more patients have recovered after contracting the COVID-19 virus.
142 COVID-19 patients have been recorded between March 11th to this evening. 17 patients have recovered and discharged from hospitals. 10 COVID-19 patients were reported today. 3 of these patients have associated people in Akurana. 2 have been reported from Kalutara. 6 patients are related to a patient who was infected before. 2 others have been reported from Kalutara and 1 from Dehiwala. They are receiving treatment at the Kalutara hospital. Number of patients under treatment stands at 132. 29 children suspected of contracted with the COVID-19 have been admitted to the Lady Ridgeway Hospital. 173 suspected cases are currently under medical supervision in several hospitals. Sri Lanka Medical Research Institute is the main organization where tests are being carried out. Director of Sri Lanka Medical Research Institute, Dr. Jaruwan Bandara, said 1,600 patients have been tested. He said that 100 tests are conducted on a daily basis. He added that the SLMRI possesses facilities to conduct around 200 tests on a daily basis. Specialist Dr. Jaruwan said the tests are monitored by 3 specialist doctors on COVID-19 and then directed to the respective hospitals.
Now, health authorities are on full alert and they are directing their maximum attention towards areas where COVID-19 patients are being reported from.
The 5th ward of the Kalubowila Teaching Hospital, upon learning that a patient in the ward has tested positive for the virus. As of now, the staff of the hospital is under quarantine. However, our correspondent reported that the daily activities of the hospital were carried out regularly. Upon learning that a patient has contracted the novel coronavirus, the 20th ward of the Negombo General Hospital was closed down. 20 members of the hospital staff had been quarantined.
After the death of the patient in the Negombo Hospital, 11 nurses and a doctor were sent to a quarantine center in Vaikkala by the Sri Lanka Army.
Vaikkala Pradeshe hotel එක මේ වන විට ඔවුන් නිරෝධායනකට ලක් කරලා තිබෙනවා.
The staff of the Colombo North Teaching Hospital were quarantined for 2 weeks because of an infected patient who entered the hospital premises without informing the relevant authorities. Meanwhile, the staff of the Sri Lanka Hospital too were quarantined for 2 weeks because a patient who had been infected with the coronavirus entered the hospital premises by neglecting to provide the proper information. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Colombo Municipal Council, Ruwan Vijayamuni stated that 11 coronavirus-infected patients have been reported within Colombo. 2 infected people were found and were quarantined in their residence in Vallavata today.
The 2 new patients were found inside the same house. Their 2 sons had travelled abroad and returned on the 14th. They are in good condition. They are not showing any symptoms. We have quarantined them inside their house to see if they are showing any symptoms of the virus. But we have confirmed that their parent has contracted the virus. We have found 45 people they have associated.
ආශ්‍රිතයින් 45ක් පමණ දැනට අපි අඳුරගෙන.
Dr. Ruwan Vijayamuni further stated that visits made by outsiders to children homes and homes for the aged have been banned.
When speaking about admitting patients who have suspected to have contracted COVID-19, we are speaking regarding the high-risk areas of Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara and Putlam. We are currently organizing 50 beds at the Voice of America building in Iranavilla. This will be exclusively used to treat COVID-19 patients and it will be ready in 2 days. The other high-risk zones are Gampaha and Kalutara. We have identified 2 hospitals from those areas as well. We will reserve the Minuwangoda hospital in the Gampaha district in another day or so, and also the Beruwala hospital has been chosen from the Kalutara district. In another 2 days, we can begin treating those who are suspected to have contracted COVID-19. We would like to request the general public as well as hospitals which do not house isolation units, if you are admitting anyone who is suffering from breathing difficulties, fever, cough or phlegm, direct them to these 4 hospitals. Through that, we can prevent patients who are infected with the virus. Travelling to far-off areas and receiving treatment from hospitals. Please adhere to these measures, and if you are suffering from any of these aforementioned symptoms, admit yourself at one of these hospitals.
Now addressing a media briefing, the World Health Organization's officials say there is currently no effective medicine to tackle the COVID-19 virus.
There is no proven effective therapeutic or drug against COVID-19. However, there are a number of drugs that have shown promise either in previous treatment of coronaviruses like MERS or SARS, in the fight against HIV, or in other situations. And there is some preliminary data from non-randomized studies, observational studies, that indicate that some drugs and some drug cocktails may have an impact. Some of those drugs may impact the length of disease, some may impact the severity of disease, and the dosages of those drugs, when they're given to what patient at what stage of the disease, has not been standardized, and we've never had a comparison group where we've had a randomized approach to treatment with the drug or not treatment with the drug. It is very important that we continue to accelerate the implementation of the randomized controlled trials that have already begun all over the world, including the WHO coordinated Solidarity 1 trial. But there are other large-scale trials underway in various parts of the world.
Now, as you may have heard, even officials from the World Health Organization say that there is currently no effective medicine to combat COVID-19 found in the world. However, tests are currently underway to determine if the Avigan tablet produced in Japan could be used to combat the COVID-19 virus. Now, against such a backdrop, 5,000 such tablets have been donated by Japan to the Sri Lankan government. Now, the chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation, Dr. Prasanna Gunasekara, added that the tablet would be distributed among hospitals depending on preference.
If the National Medicines Regulatory Authority and other regulatory bodies give the go-ahead for the tablet to be administered to the patients, the State Pharmaceutical Corporation would begin distributing the tablets. A viral infection cannot be combated by administering any drug, let alone chloroquine or Avigon. The best method of preventing the spread of this virus is adhering to community health guidelines and ensuring one's personal hygiene, thereby stopping the spread of the virus among people.
Those were the views expressed by Dr. Prasanna Gunasena, who is the chairman of the State Pharmaceutical Corporation. Moving on, the program to distribute medicine to your doorstep is currently underway in several parts of the country.
Medicine based on prescriptions handed over to the Rajyo Sisala in Polonnaruwa were distributed among the people today. Our correspondent said the main post office in Polonnaruwa was used to distribute the medical drugs. The medical drugs ordered from hospitals and the State Pharmaceutical Corporation were distributed in Gaul today. Our correspondent said the medicine was distributed by post offices.
If you do not have sufficient medicine, call the nearest government hospital and mention your clinic number. Then inform the registered name in the clinic. Mention your address with the contact number. If you obtain medicine from a hospital far away, inform this to the closest government hospital. Present your clinic book to the chief doctor. Call the chief doctor at the nearest hospital and confirm the relevant details. Once this is confirmed, make arrangements to get your medicine from Colombo or elsewhere if your hospital does not have the required medicine dosage. This is not simple as it may sound. This is a complicated procedure. This has to be carried out patiently. The guidelines are mentioned on our website.
The government and the health sector have decided that nobody will be allowed into the pharmacies. This applies to Osasala and private pharmacies. The pharmacies will be closed but medicine will be brought to your house. On our website, the private pharmacies are mentioned on the left side. Once they are selected, you will see the facilities they can provide. The pharmacies can be chosen based on your area. The order can also be placed via WhatsApp, Viber or Imo. A picture of the prescription must be taken and it must be uploaded. The address and other special details must be mentioned. Once it is given to the pharmacies have agreed to inform that an order has been placed. We will try hard to deliver the medicine within 24 hours. If anybody has an issue uploading a picture, get a neighbor or someone else to help you with it. Instructions have been given on the portion you can purchase.
මේක අප්ලෝඩ් කරගන්න උදව්වක් ගන්න පුළුවන්. උපදෙස් දීලා තියෙනවා ගන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම බෙහෙත් ප්‍රමාණය මාසික ප්‍රමාණය පමණයි කියලා.
Moving on now, the Porotata area in Kochikade has been entirely shut down upon the death of a COVID-19 patient at the Negombo District Hospital. The area is currently under the supervision of health officials.
5 districts in total have been closed down to prevent the spread of COVID-19. The areas are Kalutara, Atalogama, Kandy, Akrana, Putlam, Kadumayankulam, Tawadi and Jaffna, and including the areas of Kochikade and Porotota, which was put under lockdown today. Porotota was shut down entirely after the death of a 64-year-old individual who was residing on the Aberdeen Road in Porotota, Kochikade. According to our correspondent, the areas are now under the strict supervision of security and health officials. Akrana in Kandy is also under the supervision of health and security officials. Our correspondent was able to capture the footage of security officials taking action to shut down several shops which were left open in the surrounding areas, unheeding to the orders of the authorities.
When touring the areas around Akurana, we were able to see that the police and army had launched a special operation to arrest the people who violate the curfew. Entering and exiting from the Telambugahavatta area had been prohibited. And according to the secretary at the Akurana Pradesh Sabha, steps have been taken to supply medicine and essential food items to more than 3,000 residents of the area.
Atalagama in the Kalutara district was shut down after 3 people from the same family were found positive with the virus. 20,700 people residing under 7 Grama Seva divisions have been advised to stay indoors at all times, and essential goods are being supplied to them while they have been directed to be quarantined. Kadumayankulam Grama Seva division in Puttlam has been shut down as of now. 70 people from 11 families residing in the area have been quarantined at the Zahira College in Puttlam. I am currently standing on the main entry road to Kadumayankulam from Puttlam. The area seems deserted as of now. The area is currently under police protection. No travelling is allowed except for permitted people through the area. Especially the police have taken initiative to control the situation. Meanwhile, Tawadi and Jaffna have also been shut down after the discovery of a COVID-19 patient on the 24th of this month.
Hindrances occurred at various areas today when offering an advance of 5,000 rupees to Samurdhi beneficiaries for the loan provided by Samurdhi banks. With the announcement made by the Samurdhi Bank of Kandavinna Madagama in Monaragala stating that the advance would be given today, a group of nearly 100 people gathered at the bank today. However, the advances were only handed over to 40 people. If they are handing over the money, it should be given to everyone. These people have arrived early morning and have entered their names. If they had given the money according to alphabetical order of the names, this would be much easier. That is why officials are appointed.
They said that they would not cut off the money for loans we have obtained. 3,000 rupees should be credited to my account this month. They only handed me 4,000 rupees saying that they had cut off 5/3 for the loan.
Although all Samurdhi beneficiaries in the Madagama region had been notified yesterday to arrive at the Samurdhi office of the Madagama region to obtain the advance, it had been later notified that the advance would be paid through the divisional branches of the Samurdhi banks. While several people were issued the loan advance through the Mahiyangane Samurdhi Bank today, others had not been issued the advance.
We are all Samurdhi beneficiaries. There is no division between old and new, and that won't change our hunger. If they can issue it to other districts, why can't they issue it to us?
The Atkandura Samurdhi Bank in Gaul had arrived at a decision to hand over the advances to the beneficiaries by travelling to their houses. The manager of the Atkandura Samurdhi Bank in Gaul said the bank would remain operational for all customers every day of the week. The Samurdhi Development Officers Association requests for the Samurdhi benefit to be issued on a basis of non-recovery. They publicized that a sum of 10,000 rupees would be issued to Samurdhi beneficiaries and low-income earners. They led people to believe that a total sum of 10,000 rupees would be issued. Therefore, the Department of Samurdhi Development issued a circular in this regard, but by now, many amendments have been made to it, and now it states that the money would be issued in 2 installments of 5,000 rupees each. We would like to state this. Issue 10,000 rupees to all 2.1 million Samurdhi beneficiaries in the country. Now, many industries in Sri Lanka as well as across the globe have been affected adversely as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, and the textile industry in Sri Lanka is facing serious issues as some international buyers are yet to make payments for orders since February this year. The matter was discussed at a meeting of the Presidential Task Force on Essential Services which was held at Temple Trees today. Attention was also drawn towards the sudden cancellation of buyers-only orders which are already in production or yet to go into production. Issues and challenges the exporters might face in the next quarter were also widely discussed during this meeting. Now, representatives from the EU mission in Colombo and the US Embassy in Sri Lanka were also present at the meeting. With that, we cross over for a short commercial break.
Main sponsor. Special announcement. Continental Insurance wishes to inform our clients medical expenses incurred due to COVID-19 are payable under our issued health insurance policies.
Welcome back to the news. We are now joined by Shamir Rasuldeen from Studio R.
Thank you very much, Jana. Now, joining us this evening on the show is Dhananath Fernando, Chief Operating Officer of the Advocata Institute, to talk about the impact on the already collapsed country's economy. Stay connected, stay with News First. We will join you right now. Now, the government made a few mistakes. The first being is not closing the door when the first detected patient who was infected with COVID-19 was detected on the 11th of March, and then not going for a partial lockdown. On the economic front, the government made a few mistakes as well. Number one being price controls being imposed. You saw President Gotabaya Rajapaksa making a special statement, said the dal would be 65 rupees a kilo and canned fish at 100 rupees. Then they printed 50 billion rupees of money, and then import controls was brought in. In your opinion, how has this impacted the country's economy?
In the first front, Shamir, when you have price controls, it looked, even the public thought this is a good measure, and I'm sure the government did it with a good intention. But the end result has been the tin fish and the dal has been disappeared from the market. The simple reason is, if you look at the prices according to the government census and statistics, just in the first 2 weeks in March, it was almost double the price. The tin fish was about 225 rupees and dal was about 130 rupees. So the products are already in the shelf. So when you have a massive price control, of course, the people are going to disappear or hide the products from the shelves, and there will be an additional demand. And if I am an importer, it doesn't make sense for me to import something even if I can't sell it at the cost. So that's what happened, and that hampered the poor, because poor who was, I'm not saying if the products were available it will be sold at 100 rupees, but they could have bought it at 200 rupees. But now what has happened was, since these products were disappeared from the market, now the poor has to shift to alternatives which are more expensive than even the market price it could have been. So that's the mistake number one. Number two was on printing money. There was 50 billion recent money printing, that is central bank buying the treasury bonds, and that will have an impact on the inflation. Again, when the inflation hits, that again impacts the poor, because the poor will not have an income and the prices will go up, and that impacts the poor again.
Now, there was a world recession in 2008, Dhananath, and as a result of that, Sri Lanka lost approximately around 90,000 jobs. Are we heading towards a recession in the next few months or even the next few years per se?
Shamir, in my opinion, yes, we are heading to a recession, and it will be a very difficult time for Sri Lankans as well as for all the global citizens. But for Sri Lanka, it will be like a double whammy, because we had a very bad start. Our economic growth was 2.6%, and we have about 5.2 billion US dollars to settle within this year. If I were to give you like a picture, on the Hambantota port deal, we got about 1.3 billion US dollars. So we are talking about 5 times of the value of Hambantota port deal to settle only the debt repayment for this year. For the next 3 years, it's total with this year about 8 billion US dollars. That is about 8 times of Hambantota port deal. So it is a massive amount, and it breaks my heart as a Sri Lankan to say we are heading towards a recession. But unfortunately, Shamir, it seems that's the reality.
Unfortunately, Dhananath, there is political tug of war over the oil prices in the world market, and why not pass this on to the ordinary consumer, the ordinary citizen? But is that the way out as far as the country's economy is concerned? Can you just pass it on to the public in a scheme of a subsidy, or even in terms of a stimulus package? Is this the way out?
At this particular juncture, Shamir, though I would like to say it would have been beneficial for the people, but I think that the government has taken the right decision, because at this particular moment the government has no fiscal space to transfer it to the people, because already our exports have been dropped, and our tourism industry has been hampered by the Easter tax, and now by then again from COVID, we are expecting about 4 billion US dollars from the tourism industry itself. Our tea industry, our apparel industry, everything has been in a bad picture. So at this particular point, I don't think the government has the space to transfer it to the people.
Dhananath, you spoke about the tea sector, which contributes 1.3 billion to the national economy, as well as with the 600,000 employment opportunities. Then you have the tourism sector, which contributes 4 billion US dollars with 5% of the GDP, and approximately around 400,000 direct as well as indirect employment. I want to focus on the tea industry, because I also come from the tea industry, and I see that depreciation of the Sri Lankan rupee against the US dollar is impacting a lot to the exporter as well as the importer. How can the government avert this problem? Because in a nutshell, many might think that, you know, exporters are making money because the rupee is depreciating against the US dollar, but that's not the case, because most of the companies take loans against the US dollar, and hence when you buy the loan at 180, now it stands at 192.50. It affects companies as a whole. How can they avert this problem?
Yes, basically, Shamir, to have the pressure on the rupee is basically, that's why I said the government should not considering printing money, because that is what actually having pressure on our rupee. In terms of the tea industry, unfortunately, I think the government and all the intellectuals have to come together and have a program, because when I spoke to the Tea Exporters Association chairman, what he said was, since 1/3 of the population sitting at home at this particular moment, there's a big demand for tea. The government has taken a measure to have permits to work on the export sector, but I think if we have arranged sort of a logistical way of already sending our orders and at least to minimize the damage, I think that is something that we could do.
The missing point here is the fact that despite the fact that the tea industry is open, the exporters are open, the supply chain completely has collapsed. The printing of cartons, the printing of packaging materials is not coming in. So this is impacting the industry as a whole, and you can't get out of it until otherwise the government has a concrete plan to support the exporter.
I completely agree with you, Shamir. That's why I said we are only looking at one side of the COVID battle. All the microphones, all the cameras and all zoom in is on the number of patients and number of infections, which is important. But at the same time, you know how many people are living on the tea industry. So we have to strike a balance between these two. I think operating the markets is also finding a solution to do that is also critically important, while on the medical front we are taking the necessary measures on the other hand.
While the government is focusing a lot on the medical supply side, which is a fact and which is a given, at the end of the day saving lives is very important, you have to also think about the country's economy. How are we going to get out of this mess after COVID-19, post COVID-19? So the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, has approximately $1 trillion on offer, and then you have the World Bank, which has a substantial amount, which is around $14 billion on offer. Do you think the government has a strategy to milk the IMF and even the World Bank to get some money in as a stimulus package to boost the country's economy?
I think as the first step, His Excellency President has requested the IMF and the World Bank to reschedule the existing loans, because we are already on an IMF program from 2006 with $1.5 billion. It is not the recommendation that I would like to do to go back to IMF, but it seems we really have run out of options, because if you go to the market to raise money, the market dimensions are also not looking very positive at this particular juncture. So I think we have to go back to IMF, and government need to do their act fast, because there are about 80 countries who are in the line already.
But there should be no strings attached.
There should be no strings attached, but the other option that the government could think is to go for a bilateral loan. They can speak to China. I think China extended about $650 million loan, and I think they are going to extend it for about $2 billion loan. And the government can talk to India or some of the Middle East countries, our neighbors. But the problem is, at this time, it's different from 2008 crisis, because all the countries are fighting with this battle. So it is very unlikely in a way that these countries extend their support. But I think that should be the number one option. If we fail from getting money or getting a bilateral loan from China or India, I think then unfortunately we have to go back to IMF.
Right. Just before we go, tell us, where do you see the country's economy heading towards by the end of the year? Would we hover around 4%, or will it go down to around 2% or even 2.5% or so?
I think, Shamir, it breaks my heart again, but it will be less than 2%, because already even last year we had about 2.6%, and already this quarter seems no production in the country. I think what we could do is, rather than like while we are talking about the problems, I think the government may have to consider of declaring like a 6-day work week.
So that is the way forward.
That is the way forward, and I think people have to get prepared psychologically to work harder, and they have to take pay cuts, and there will be a lot of unemployment, and profits will be low, the government tax collection will be low, and there will be a lot of price wars, and the property value will be lower, and I think as Sri Lankans, unfortunately, we have to psychologically get prepared for this slightly the darker days to dawn.
Is there any silver lining in this dark clouds? Is there any glimmer of hope as far as the country's economy is concerned? Can we reboot ourselves and say we are a resilient nation, we overcame this problem as well as far as the country's economy is concerned? Can we come out on top, Dhananath?
I would like to be optimistic, but the thing is, what we have to do is, by getting loans, what we are trying to do is delaying the crisis. I think it's important that at this first point we somehow float at this moment, and then thereafter to go for a big economic reform package and then move from there. I think for the moment what is important is looking at the short run and manage this year, and that has to be the priority.
Right, thank you very much, Dhananath, for joining us this evening. Now, earlier on in the news bulletin, we mentioned how the Presidential Task Force has drawn its attention towards the crisis faced by the country's apparel sector in the wake of COVID-19. Looking into the country's apparel sector is rather commendable, but what has to be understood by the government is the apparel sector alone does not contribute to the country's economy. There are many other sectors like tourism, there are many other sectors like the remittances that are being brought by the expat workers as well as the tea industry as a whole. However, in the midst of a crisis such as COVID-19, it is important to know that almost all sectors have been severely affected, and many conglomerates in Sri Lanka are facing the brunt at present. It is imperative at this juncture that all the sectors, including production, services and industrial sectors, are looked into for a better future as far as the country's economy is concerned. Thank you very much, Dhananath Fernando, Chief Operating Officer of Advocata Institute, for joining us this evening on the News Bulletin. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men and women are afraid of the light. So act responsibly.
In more local news now, the COVID-19 outbreak has adversely affected the education of many children in our country.
All schools in the country closed down on the 13th of this month with the risk of coronavirus looming large. Educational activities of 4.4 million students who were enrolled at 10,187 government schools in the country have now been hindered. When News First inquired into the situation, Secretary to the Ministry of Education, NMM Chitrananda, said discussions pertaining to the issue are already underway. The process of issuing results of the 2019 GCE Ordinary Level Examination is also in its final stages. The Secretary to the Ministry of Education added a final decision regarding the Grade 5 Scholarship Exam and GCE Advanced Level Examination, which are to be held later this year, would only be held based on the recommendations of the health authorities. It has been 18 days since all universities in the country too were shut down, resulting in the delay of educational activities of 25,000 university students across 15 universities in the country. With the involvement of the TRC, we have provided all students with internet facilities to log into their respective universities without any fee. This was one of the biggest obstructions we managed to overcome. We also have an online platform called Learn, which is accessible to all 15 universities and other institutes with higher studies. The University of Colombo School of Computing has assisted the University Grants Commission massively by accomplishing this with Learn. They are an elite team in technology in Sri Lanka. Internet usage for education among students is growing even more today. But there are issues, and when it comes to resolving these issues at a technological point of view, we are at a very low standard. However, we have used this accomplishment as a benchmark to move forward. Meanwhile, Minister Bandula Gunawardena, speaking to News First, said measures have been taken to transfer the Mahapolo scholarship funds to the students' bank accounts. We have starved all resources of the Mahapolo scholarship. This is solely because we do not receive the funds from the Mahapolo Development Lottery these days. These funds have to be paid from government expenditure, the taxpayers' money. Students are not in hostels, but the government has decided to deposit those funds in their bank accounts as of yesterday.
Now, the commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, explained the procedures that are in place to provide pension payments to our senior citizens amidst the coronavirus outbreak.
The pension payment is to be paid on the 2nd and 3rd of April. The payment is being received by elderly citizens. The government has decided on a plan to transport them to and from banks after they have withdrawn their payments. The Triforces, the police and the Grama Sevak officers will work together when transporting the elders to their banks so that they can withdraw their pension payment.
The curfew that was imposed on 19 districts will be removed temporarily tomorrow at 6 a.m. and the Presidential Secretariat stated the curfew will be reimposed after 2 p.m. However, the districts of Colombo, Gampha, Kalutara, Puttlam, Kandy and Jaffna will be under police curfew until further notice. All transportation between districts will be prohibited except for essential services. Moving on in more news now, a situation arose today when former MP Palitha Peruma attempted to distribute food items to residents in Atulugama. As Atulugama in the Kaltara district has been placed on lockdown, the former parliamentarian was barred from entering the area by security officials. In footage captured by our cameras, the former parliamentarian Tevara Peruma could be heard contacting a person by the name of Namal Rajapaksa. Thereafter, the former parliamentarian Tevara Peruma handed over the food items to the officials before departing the area. In more news now, this was the situation that arose when there was an attempt to bury the remains of a patient in Maraka, in Vilgamur, in Mahyanganaya. The people of the immediate vicinity protested against the body being buried at the location, and the body had to be taken back to the hospital. Specialist psychologist Dr. Zayan Mendis joined us on our Newsline segment with Tarusha Kumarasinghe today.
So now few areas in the country have been shut down. Many areas they are under curfew. Curfew has been imposed. Now against this backdrop, many people are stuck in their homes. Couples, families, people are stuck in their homes now. As a result, isn't depression going to be a problem? Isn't domestic violence is going to be a problem?
Yeah, I think you need to think this from the bigger picture. Now you know that at present there is this virus infection is going on, and government will have to take some strict measures, and in fact government had been taking strict measures, but unfortunately due to very high life factor, it's more prevalent in Sri Lankan society, and the larger percentage of patients, they are not that genuine, and they are not genuine even when they sometimes when they pay and come for their private consultation even. Some they completely come and tell a lie, which is usually not done thing in any other civilized country.
Yes.
And now in a situation like this, ideally what they need to, what they should have done was for them to come and tell the truth. And in that case the picture would have been completely different. But so our country is so unfortunate that when they had come and told a lie to a medical team, and no other action that they could take other than trying to take some strict measures, and that is number one. Number two is that the way how this infection is going on, and the next step of this is stage of community transmission.
Yes.
For which the even the richer countries are also trying and possible to do the process of locking down.
Right. Doctor, according to your expertise and experience in these few days where curfew has been imposed, some areas have been, Atalugama, Akurana areas like that have been shut down. What is the level of the cases that you encounter on a daily basis? Is it at a severe level that we should be concerned of, or is it like you said, many people lie and all that, or is it at a level that we should be concerned of?
We should be concerned of. And at the same time we need to take measures.
Yes.
And you see, that is the way to handle this situation. And definitely when they have been locked down or an area of the city or the district is locked down, generally that will generate some kind of stress.
Yes.
And that stress might lead to some other stresses, other psychiatric complications also. But what the message what I could tell the public is that you need to try and possible to turn this to a more positive way. And you see, if you go before this corona infection, at the rate that our society has been running, and the various kind of psychosocial issues had led to the disintegration of families in Sri Lanka. And husband won't talk to the wife, or husband may not have had time to speak to the wife, or the children may not be having time to speak to the parents, and they don't have time to eat, they did not have time to even to
spend time together
and read a book, and all that. And because of that, I think this is the ideal time for them to rethink about how to put their family back into picture and back into somewhat a reasonable level of functioning family.
Right.
And that itself will reduce the stress, anger or irritability what they are going to have as a result of this lockdown process.
Right. Just before we wrap up, doctor, let's say hypothetically a couple or a family who's at home have been on lockdown, have been under curfew imposed area for some time, and if they are realizing that they are starting to have some problems with their partner, with their families, with their children, with their parents, what is one general advice you can give to them?
I think what the general advice is that they need to straight away need to discuss that issue and to more discussion rather than having to going for confrontation.
Okay.
And to how this problem had started and going to the root cause of that and trying to solve the problem.
Before progressing, I would like to draw your attention to a story that we brought to you earlier regarding the total number of coronavirus patients that have tested positive in Sri Lanka as of today, and that number stood at 20, and the 10 latest coronavirus patients that tested positive as at this evening, we have received confirmation that all 10 of those coronavirus patients have originated from the Puttlam district. Moving on with more local news, the Sri Lanka Navy has seized 1 ton of narcotic substances in a raid conducted in high seas. Now, according to the Sri Lanka Navy, the street value of the consignment of drugs is over 12.5 billion rupees.
The Sri Lanka Navy said the consignment of narcotics was seized by its offshore patrol vessels SLNS Sayura 463 nautical miles off the southern coast of the island when it detected a flagged stateless vessel in international waters. Upon inspection, 500 kilograms of crystal methamphetamine, commonly known as ice, 500 kilograms of cocaine, 200 packets of barbul and 100 grams of unidentified narcotic pills had been found aboard the vessel. This is the third foreign vessel to be detained while transporting narcotics to Sri Lanka during the last 2 months. On the 22nd and the 25th of February, the Sri Lankan Navy intercepted 2 foreign vessels carrying narcotics to Sri Lanka and arrested 27 suspects. The Sri Lanka Navy, along with the Police Narcotics Bureau, have launched operations in search of local and international suspects behind the latest seizure of narcotics. There will be large consignments of heroin coming into the country in the coming few days. We have successfully seized this haul of drugs at a time the country is battling to eradicate the coronavirus.
Up next is a short commercial break. Stay tuned to News First.
Why should you stay at home if you haven't been exposed to COVID-19 and you don't feel sick? Sri Lanka has taken several steps to limit public movement and large gatherings in order to encourage people to stay at home. All of these measures are being carried out in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19 and to flatten the curve. But what does it mean to flatten the curve? As the virus starts to spread, it initially only infects a few people. As more and more people are exposed over time, the rate of infection increases. In Sri Lanka, we had the very first national case on 11th of March. However, as the weeks passed, we saw a steady increase in the number of cases and, over the last few days, a much more rapid increase in the numbers infected. As with most viruses, the number of cases will continue to grow till it reaches a peak, after which the number of cases will start to drop as people start recovering. If precautions are not taken to slow the virus from spreading, there will be a rapid increase of cases that will exceed our healthcare system's capacity to respond. However, if we implement precautionary measures such as isolating patients, keeping those exposed to the virus in quarantine, and practicing social distancing early, the spread of the virus can be slowed, resulting in a much more gradual increase of cases that our healthcare system can respond to more effectively. Flattening the curve means that we reduce the speed at which the virus spreads and reduce the number of total cases over time. What can you do? At an individual level, there's a lot you can do to stop the virus from spreading. The government has asked everyone to practice social distancing. This means staying home and avoiding crowded places like work, school, public transport and social gatherings. Obviously, social distancing isn't possible for everyone. Those in essential services and those who cannot work from home have no choice. But if all of us who can stay home do our part diligently by avoiding all non-essential interactions, we can all play a part in significantly reducing the spread of COVID-19 in Sri Lanka. This is especially important as symptoms of COVID-19 can take between 2 to 14 days to develop, so people can be infected and contagious without knowing it themselves. So don't treat these days like an unexpected holiday. There is no need to panic, but by practicing these precautionary measures, you can protect yourself, your loved ones, your community and your country by staying indoors and avoiding all non-essential interactions. Frequently washing your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds and practicing good respiratory hygiene like sneezing and coughing onto the inside of your elbow or a tissue. Break the link today. We all have a role to play in Sri Lanka's response to COVID-19. Spread the word, not the virus.
There is a popular disbelief that we can prevent ourselves from being affected by COVID-19 by spraying turmeric water and hanging neem leaves at home. This had been practiced in certain rural areas as well. While it has been used widely in the traditional medicine and Ayurvedic practices, however, there is no medical evidence to this effect. Secondly, there was a rumor saying that the spread of coronavirus can be curbed under hot temperatures. However, the virus has been spreading in certain areas with high temperatures such as India, Sri Lanka and Australia. There is no scientific evidence for this as well. There is another belief that alternative medicines such as garlic can be used to prevent ourselves from being affected by the coronavirus. It is good to take such substances to enhance your immunity system, but it will not cure coronavirus. The belief that drinking more alcohol and smoking excessively will prevent a person from being affected by coronavirus is false. Both these groups of people have more chances of being affected by the virus. There is a rumor stating that Russian President Vladimir Putin had released 800 lions onto the streets to prevent people from leaving their homes. However, this was a snapshot from a film that was shot in South Africa in 2016.
Shifting our attention towards the international arena now, the United States may toughen movement restrictions to curb the spread of the coronavirus, with the country now reporting twice the number of cases as China, where the outbreak began last year. Now health officials have also confirmed that the United States is the new epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak. The US has nearly 163,500 confirmed cases, the highest number in the world at present. More than 3,000 people in the United States have now died of COVID-19. 787,631 people have been infected globally, while 37,840 people have succumbed to the coronavirus outbreak. However, 166,276 people have recovered from the coronavirus outbreak. And with that, we wrap up primetime news on TV1. However, with an artificial limitation imposed on human activities as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak, Mother Nature seems to have given a well-deserved break, and a striking example of that are the herd of deer that can be witnessed in the otherwise congested town of Trincomalee. We leave you tonight with those pleasing visuals. Take care and good night.